Roughly 2 out of every 3 dam failures happen the very first time a reservoir is filled. Not from age, not from war, from the first real test the structure ever faces. 6 dams, 6 countries, 100 years apart. Different sizes, different materials. The same first fill collapse. Camará Dam. In 2002, engineers in Paraíba, in northeastern Brazil, finished a new dam above the town of Alagoa Grande. It had been designed as an earth embankment, but partway through the contracting process, the design changed to roller-compacted concrete instead. A switch made after the builder was already chosen, and later scrutinized for irregularities in how that contract was awarded. For 2 years, the reservoir behind Camará rose slowly, filling toward a level it had never reached. Then, in June of 2004, a heavy storm pushed the water to its highest point yet. Still around 6 meters below the spillway crest, still officially within safe limits. What no foundation survey had found was a geological fault buried about 5 meters into the left abutment, a hidden plane of weakness running under that entire side of the dam. Later reviewers would also point to how the contract itself had changed hands, and how the switch from an earth design to concrete had gone forward without anyone rechecking whether the ground below still matched the new plan. On June 17th, the dam gave way along that fault. 17 million cubic meters of water tore through Alagoa Grande and the neighboring town of Mulungu in minutes. 5 people were confirmed dead. Roughly 20 more were never found, and close to 800 families lost their homes. The investigation placed the failure on a foundation study that missed the fault, and on a late design change that was never matched to a new geological survey of the ground it would stand on. Camará had never been tested at this water level before. It never would be again. Teton Dam. Teton Dam. By 1976, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation had finished a 270-foot earth dam across the Teton River in eastern Idaho, built to store irrigation water for the farms of the Snake River Plain. On the right side of the canyon, the foundation was a badly fractured volcanic rock called rhyolite, cut through with fissures up to 6 feet wide. For the first time that June, the reservoir climbed toward its full depth of 270 feet. On the morning of June 5th, engineers noticed clear water leaking from the canyon wall near the right abutment. Within hours, the leak turned muddy, carrying rock and soil out of the fissures it was supposed to seal. A sinkhole opened on the downstream face, and by mid-morning, heavy equipment was already trying and failing to plug it. A local radio host was broadcasting live from near the site when the embankment gave way just before noon. "The whole north side of the dam is caving in," he told his listeners, as 3 workers who had been standing on the crest minutes earlier scrambled to reach solid ground. The current had scoured a channel straight through the fill. At 11:55 that morning, the crest itself collapsed, and the entire reservoir emptied in under 6 hours. 11 people died. Damage came to roughly $400 million in 1976 money, among the costliest dam failures in American history. The panel that investigated concluded the dam's designers had never accounted for the site's specific geology, and that independent review might have caught the flaw before construction. The disaster became the catalyst for Reclamation's first dedicated dam safety program, and 2 years later for the Reclamation Safety of Dams Act. Xe-Pian Xe-Namnoy. In southern Laos, on the Bolaven Plateau, a hydropower project used a ridge of low-saddle dams to hold back a reservoir feeding a 15-kilometer tunnel toward the power station. One of those 5 saddle dams, known simply as Saddle Dam D, ran more than 700 meters across the ridge. Satellite radar later showed the dam had been quietly settling since the day construction finished in late 2017. For 6 months, the movement stayed still. Then, in May of 2018, 3 months before anyone noticed a problem on the ground, the settling suddenly accelerated. Monsoon rain filled the reservoir toward its first full test. By July, sections of the dam had shifted more than 3 centimeters and were sinking over 20 centimeters a year, visible only to a satellite, not to anyone standing on the embankment. The builder found fractures in the dam roughly a day before it gave way and alerted authorities, and evacuations began that same day. But the warning did not reach everyone in time. One village downstream said it was told to leave only about 2 hours before the water arrived. On the evening of July 23rd, Saddle Dam D collapsed. 350 million cubic meters of water swept down the Vang Ngao River, across villages in Laos and into Cambodia. More than 70 people died, and thousands lost their homes. Investigators traced the collapse to a failure in the dam's foundation. Evidence gathered afterward suggested the builder had cut costs during construction, but no company or government was ever held formally accountable, and the full investigation report was never published. The dam had been failing for months before it broke, just too slowly and too far beneath the surface for anyone to see it in time. Sempor Dam. In 1967, construction crews in central Java began raising an earth dam across the Sempor River, meant to control floods and irrigate the farmland of Kebumen Regency below. Construction had barely started, and the embankment was still far short of its finished height, when the region's rainy season arrived early and hard. Water rose behind the unfinished structure faster than the builders had planned for. On November 29th, the same year the first foundation had been poured, a flash flood pushed the reservoir straight over the incomplete crest into a dam that had never been asked to hold back a single full season of water. The overtopping water tore into the embankment from above, and what little dam existed gave way almost immediately, sending a wave through the town of Magelang and 2 neighboring communities before anyone downstream had reason to expect a flood at all. 160 people died in a disaster released by a dam that had not even been finished. The core wall, meant to eventually hold back the river, had not yet reached the height the design called for. The failure was recorded simply as construction overtaken by water, not any flaw in a design still being built. Work on Sempor did not resume for years. The dam that stands there today was not completed until 1978, more than a decade after its first attempt at holding water ended in disaster. Tigra Dam. Tigra Dam. Near Gwalior, in central India, a masonry gravity dam stretching more than 4,000 feet across the Sank River was completed in 1917, one of the largest storage reservoirs built in India at the time. Rubble masonry faced with cut stone meant to secure the water supply of a growing city. That same year, the monsoon arrived stronger than any recorded before it. By August 4th, the reservoir had climbed to a level the dam had never held, and water began passing over the crest by about a foot from one hillside to the other. The first time the young structure had ever been asked to carry that much weight at once. The foundation beneath the dam was layered, untreated sandstone. As water pushed through it, pressure built up beneath the structure faster than anyone had accounted for. 2 sections of the spillway, each a solid masonry monolith weighing hundreds of tons, slid hundreds of feet downstream as if they had never been anchored at all. The reservoir emptied in an uncontrolled release toward the valley below. Records from 1917 are incomplete, and no official death toll was ever confirmed. Multiple historical accounts place placed the number near 1,000, a scale the surviving paperwork can describe only in estimates, never in certainty. The dam was rebuilt on the same site a decade later, this time with the ground treatment the original had. Panshet Dam. Panshet Dam. Above Pune, in western India, an earth dam was finishing its very first year of holding back water in 1961, storing a reservoir meant to secure the growing city's water supply for decades to come. A steel shortage during construction had forced builders to replace the reinforced concrete originally specified for the outlet conduit with plain, unreinforced concrete blocks instead. Through early July, monsoon rain kept falling, and engineers kept filling the reservoir against the advice of some of their own staff, chasing the storage the young city needed. Cracks began appearing in the embankment. Soldiers from the Indian Army rushed sandbags to the failing sections, buying a few extra hours, just long enough to push the final collapse from the middle of the night into the early morning of July 12th, when Pune was waking up instead of asleep. The dam gave way, and the flood that followed also breached the smaller Kadakwasla Dam further downstream, doubling the water moving toward the city and leaving entire neighborhoods along the riverbank underwater within the hour. No official casualty count from the disaster has ever been agreed on. Estimates run from just over 1,000 to more than 2,000 people. What is certain is that Panshet remains one of the deadliest dam failures on record, caused by a length of unreinforced concrete inside a dam that was being filled for the very first time. 6 dams, 6 countries. 100 years between the oldest and the newest. Different materials, different climates, different engineers, built for different reasons. Irrigation, hydropower, a growing city's water supply. But every one of them broke during the same narrow window, the first time its reservoir was truly put to the test. Not every first fill ends this way. In California in 1964, an unfinished dam called Hellhole took a flood twice the size of anything on record, eroded from the inside out, and failed completely. And not one person died. It tore out 5 bridges and carried rock 60 miles down a canyon. But the valley below had time and distance on its side. The dam was rebuilt on the same site, and it has held ever since. The pattern is the same either way. A structure holds back water it has never held back before, and for a few hours, everything the drawings promised gets tested against everything the ground actually is. Most dams pass that test quietly, and no one ever hears about them. These